everyone. I'm Polikseni Manxhari, host of Franklin Almanac.
I'm Dale Kurtz, veteran officer for the town of Franklin.
Franklin is filled with numerous nonprofit organizations, and now we add one more to the list. We're sitting down with the founders of Finding You Sanctuary, a nonprofit organization with the dual purpose of pairing up veterans diagnosed with PTS and dogs rescued from euthanasia. Thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Of course. So I'd love to know a little bit of the organization. How does it work? Give us a brief overview of how your organization works.
At this point, we are in the startup phase. Mm-hmm. So we've done a lot of homework. We've created a lot of associations. We've gotten a lot of advice. And we're starting to pull together all the talent and organizing it in that way. And now we're faced with the need to fundraise so that we can actually move on to what I would call phase 2.
Okay.
When the phase 2 is the actual demonstration study to show that how we operate with the program and how it will benefit the veterans themselves.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what the demonstration study is and how it works?
Teach the veteran how to connect deeply with their dog. After that, then I teach the veteran how to read the dog's behavior that also reflects the veteran's state of mind.
Wow.
And after that, we go into the beginning of restoring two souls, the dog and the veteran.
She often refers to it as a natural law, in keeping with natural law. And it's observing the way a dog is naturally and the way people interact with a dog naturally, and tries to return that to its natural state, as opposed to a lot of command and control from the dog owner. So it exposes the great relationship and helps them to fuse a deeper connection together. And that's where the dog begins to really reflect the emotional state of the individual, in this case, the veteran. And then she teaches the veteran how to read the behavior so that they can begin to manage their symptoms. And slowly, at their own pace over time, begin to reduce those symptoms. And that's where the restoration begins, in fact, for both of them, because most of these will be rescued dogs.
Right. So, we are talking about both rescue dogs and veterans. So what are the qualifications for a veteran to be in the program?
Well, there's a broad range of trauma impact to veterans, and the more simplified is the PTS, and that is considered to be temporary in most cases. But if it lasts longer and continues, it can actually grow deeper and broaden the spectrum of symptoms that occur. So, and that's they call PTSD, and that can actually involve clinicians and medication, psychiatry, and it's a big study and it's a big program, and there's a lot going on right now to help support that. But what we'll be also doing is going beyond just PTSD, eventually into TBI, which is traumatic brain injury, and then on to MST, which is military sexual trauma.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so our plan is to broaden the spectrum of who we invite into the program as large as possible, as wide as possible, so that we can have a greater impact on a longer-term basis for as many people as possible, and save as many dogs at the same time.
You talked about MST, which is military sexual trauma.
Yes.
And you're treating both men and women in that when you established that program?
Yes, well, it's very important to both men and women, because the untold story is that there's a fair amount of that, somewhere in the nature of 10% of all those who serve. And that's what's reported. And it's a very different nature, so it will require a different type of program than we have already established for the veterans with PTS and PTSD. So, as I said, we will be evolving into that with our board advisor and our outside advisor helping us gauge our way through that process.
Yeah, it is a tough situation.
Yes.
How will you select a veteran to join your program?
Yeah, well, there's some basic criterion. She selects dogs.
Yes, I select dogs.
She can pick them up in a minute. This is a great dog to work with, and this one just needs a little help. Well, with the veteran, there's a bunch of practical issues that have to be overcome. One is they have to have a place to live, so they can actually house a dog. And
Right.
yeah, so there's a number of months that have to be shown that yes, they have some housing, and also that it can accept a dog. So those are two basic practical issues. On our program, since the veteran will not be paying anything at any time for anything, it may include in a needs base when they're done with the program whether or not they can actually support the dog or not. We may be able to assist with that or even cover it entirely. And so basically what we want is an outcome base and a long-term basis, which brings to mind the fact that we named it a sanctuary for a reason. And there is a program that they go through, which is a set period of time and experience, but once that is through, what happens next? The idea behind a sanctuary is to help them find during the program an inner sanctuary that they carry with them at all time and can call upon at any time they feel the need. But also, our bigger vision is to have an actual physical place where a community center, wooded paths, a place where like-minded people who have gone through the program can come and commune together with their dog, their support person, and we call it from program to forever, so that we support the veterans' progress at their own pace over the time that they need, and this is what we feel will increase the success rate. We feel it's critically important.
That's great. You mentioned a support person.
Yes.
Is that the veteran, or is this someone to support the veteran?
Well, the support person could be a veteran, but it could also be a family member.
But it's not the veteran that you're working with.
Correct.
Okay, so
Correct.
Yes.
so
It's an additional person that we also help understand the program. They go through the program to a certain extent, and then they can support them while they're doing the program, and then there will likely be a deeper connection between the two of them from having gone through the program,
Right.
and therefore it's a greater support over time.
I know that you are looking to raise funds in 3 phases. Can you tell us what those phases are?
Well, 3 phases. The first phase is the startup phase. We're in it right now. There's a lot of legalese. We have 4 attorneys and accountant and webmaster. I mean, there's all this process that has to be done. There's umpteen million documents to create. There's intellectual property, et cetera. So there's a lot to that, and we need to set that up first before we can even accept $1.
Okay.
Once that process begins, then we can move through that to the second phase, which is the demonstration study. And that's where we'll bring in a sampling of veterans, preferably with their dogs, and begin that process. And then we do a measurement of system. We do a survey system over that period.
How long will that take?
Well, right now, we believe it's going to be, 3 months?
Okay.
Yes.
The entire study will be 3 months.
first section.
The first section.
Oh.
We're
wow.
going to
Do 2.
Yeah, we'll break it into 2.
Okay.
Because we want to tweak the second one, the first one for the second one.
Okay.
Because we know this is about improving as we go along.
Okay.
And it's about outcome based.
So tell us what specifically goes on in the demonstration study when you do it.
Okay. The first thing that we do is, seriously, we sit the veterans down the first day and explain to them what they should be ready for. And it is about their dog and them. I feel that the dog comes first in this whole process. So we first go into how do we deal with our dog on a daily basis. And it will be their own dog too, which I want to make clear on that. It's very important that it be their own dog the first time for the demonstration. We teach them how to crate their dog properly. And I don't know if that wants to be explained, but it is a process that I've learned to bring a little joy and comfort to the dog and make the person at ease walking away. Also, there is a touch, a feel, learning how to take care of your own dog by cutting its nails, brushing it, bathing it, drying it. We go right into a pack training where other dogs learn to get along with others, which they do naturally, but soon forget if not allowed. So the pack training is what I do, is I train the people, the veterans, how to deal with the pack, which is very important for community because many dogs, many dogs. The veteran will learn the basic commands, but the pack training is very much more important, watching the behavior, doing that in our little sanctuary, which is in a yard, but private. Then eventually moving them out to a dead-end street to walk with their dogs, the proper walk, which is I call a mindful walk, with you. not ahead of or way behind, but with you. And then we move ourselves out and beyond into neighborhoods, then to stores that allow dogs now, and so on and so on. So it becomes more into the community. And that lasts 3 months, and it's 1 day a week.
How long is each session?
About 5, 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
And we may adjust it, but it includes lunch, breaks for the dog. So the 6 hours or the 5 hours is not always just working with the dog. It's relaxing and getting together.
Because social time in between all of these exercises is very important, because that's actually part of living with the dog and getting connected. And also making sure that you understand that the pack training is a big part of establishing the natural behavior.
Right.
And once you become part of the pack training as a person, you understand what a natural dog is. And it's so important. That helps you to gain further connection and also understand how other dogs interact with each other.
Right.
Or interact.
Some people have a perception that there are certain dogs or breeds of dogs that may not be social or may not be easily trained or may not be able to adapt to the type of training you're doing. What do you find that to be?
What I do is when I first meet the dog, and I go right into what the dog does, is that I watch its behavior towards me. And my body language and what I do first is I don't talk, touch, or look at the dog when I first meet it. And I wait for the behavior to show me how intense this dog is, how able it is to be with others, and if it knows how to be in a pack naturally. Because instantly, when I show my body language as not interested, and I only do this to ask this dog without speaking to back up and sit down and be respectful. It does take some time, but I keep watching what this dog does, how long it takes, how intense its energy gets, and this will tell me if the dog's going to work or not. I don't judge behavior right away. I wait, and that's how I work it.
Do you find there are some breeds, though, that may not be
No.
easily adopted?
Well, I do.
You do.
Jack Russell.
Only 'cause she has a Jack
Sorry,
Russell.
I have one.
That's right.
Not any. I think they're all doable depending on the person. So, and all can be sociable depending.
And I'm just glad I'm not the one doing the behaviors.
So I believe it's all possible, but too high energy with a veteran with PTS is not something you want to do if it's not ready to be with the pack.
You talked about the program and the method, which is very interesting, but how will you measure success?
Well, there's actually two ways. One will be the qualitative and one will be the quantitative. And the quantitative I can speak to. And we're aligning ourselves with the Veterans Administration. There's a tremendous number of programs available. They come in the form of a survey. Some are clinician administered and others are actually self-reported. And the one we'll be working with is called the PTSD, the PTSD checklist. And that's the most up-to-date. It has 20 items it covers. They're all symptoms based on the trauma experienced, and it's military-based. So we'll be using that, and it's quantifiable by looking back over the past week to see if they're reoccurring or a subsiding of those reoccurring events. So we'll be able to actually measure it quantitatively. Qualitatively,
I measure success by only the best that the veteran can do at that moment, every day. And I only ask that if you can put one step forward every day or every moment, that for me is success. Totally.
yeah, outcome-based. That's really what we're doing. And willing to adjust on a dime.
That's important.
Yeah.
The final outcome. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
that's good.
Right. And we're open, as always, as we've been from the beginning, to receiving all kinds of advice and direction and support and input. It's critical. We're not veterans ourselves. We are civilians. It's our way of supporting their effort to come home, and it's a very difficult process, and we don't want to insert our misunderstandings, we want to make sure that it's exactly what they need and alter and adjust as we go.
Now, a lot of the people watching probably don't know this, but you're a brother-sister duo.
Yes, we are.
So I'd love to know, what inspired the idea? Why did you want to start this organization?
Well, that would be me. I will answer that.
I was doing fine.
Yes, you were. He was doing fine until I came along. I actually, at a point in my life, I want to say 7 years ago, decided that, behavior, I want to work with behavior. So I chose to move a little bit away from grooming, which I've always done, into working with dogs and their behavior. First thing I ever did, I need to tell this story. It's very important to me because this dog that I was my first rehab to see how good I could do behavior was a big guy. He was 95 pounds, got him out of a rescue in Worcester. And I think 3 hours after I brought him home, he managed to bite my husband pretty bad for offering a treat, and followed hunting him down after that. And about 6 months later, they could get together. But needless to say, I called him the big, the bad, and the ugly guy. And he just had no mind in his head that he wanted to be with people or other dogs or the world. And it took 3 months of working with him consistently every day, all the time, in between working with the other things I was doing. He literally was the one that got me out of my yard, and because I grew him in the back in a barn, and he brought me into the world, because if I did not bring him out into the world, I could not heal him. So I have to say that because of him, I became very knowledgeable on dog body language. He brought me the subtlest movements, eye contact, every part of his being was all about body language, because the only time you knew he growled was when he was biting. Excuse me. So I then proceeded to go out and start doing behaviors, and I said, I can work with people when they're bad dogs. And I was called upon by a veteran that I did not know at the moment, or for the first 2 months, was a veteran, but he needed my help with his doodle. And I went to work with his doodle, and it was a biter. And I did not see that until the veteran came in. As I walked into the yard, he came out to meet me, and it totally reacted to him and got a little weird. So I noticed that. Well, we started to work together. And 2 months later, I don't know how it came out, but his dog was getting better, and he was getting better, and he finally said, I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I have PTSD. I did not know this is what he used to do, and I'm not laughing at it because I would giggle when he would do it, but I didn't know what this was, but he would just all of a sudden go like this. And he finally said that's what that is that starter response, I guess. And every time I giggled, he'd kind of get a little weirder with me, but I said, hey, I didn't know what it was. But I finally, when I found out that, I said to him, I will now work with you for free. And he and I worked together for another 2 months every week. And by the way, he did end up being pretty open. His dog stopped biting. They got very sociable. And it was amazing. In one of our last sessions, and he knew this, I was walking back from a field across the his house. We were walking in his yard, and all of a sudden, sorry, Chuck, but he just went this. He stops me, turns me around, and looks right at me and says, you need to promise me that you will do this with the veterans coming back. They are dying. No one's helping. Please help them. You have helped me. And I said, I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, that's very powerful.
And so that I kept in my head for 2 years. And I just wasn't getting anywhere with my gratification on working with dogs and their people. I called my brother and said, would you please help me get this business going? And he said, I will set up a business plan for you, Lynne, and then you can bring it to someone and they'll help you. And 2 weeks later, I called him and said, no, you're going to help me. And so you can...
Every time I tried to leave, she kept pulling me back.
Wow.
Well, she didn't even tell me about the veteran and that experience at that
Right
point.
away.
And it took a while of me getting deeper and deeper into what she did to realize that this method she has that she uses and developed is phenomenal. It's very special. her twin sister pointed out the same thing years prior to that, and our other sister is up in New Hampshire doing it with horses.
Oh.
With the same. That's all they have. This
Wow.
we all have this gift.
Yeah.
And I just stand back in awe. And so eventually we started organizing this, and that's when it came out that she had this experience with a veteran, and then all this flood of, this is what we've been waiting for all our lives, to actually be able to give back as a citizen to our warriors who have been kind of left abandoned in how they feel, and now it's our turn to give back, and so it just started all snowballing from there, and it's been a long time. In fact, we realized we had issues ourselves, and it's improper to bring in your own baggage. We spent 4 years together. We went voluntarily to a alternative holistic type counseling.
Wow.
And we've been doing it for 4 years steadily, twice a month. And that's in order to remain neutral in the process.
Okay.
So we've not just jumped into this. This is something that we've been preparing for step by step at our own pace. And we're happy where we are at now.
You've mentioned this demonstration study. What are you looking? Are you looking for 20 people to participate? Are you looking for 2? Or what are you looking for your demonstration study, and when do you expect to be able to start that?
Well, it's the number of people is few. We want, especially the first one, probably anywhere from 3 to 4. I think it's easier to find a selection that way, and because who knows how many people we have to talk to and interview in order to get that 3 or 4. We're certainly hoping that there may be at least one woman or one man in that group. So whatever the dynamics are, we hope that we can at least work on that level. And then the beginning of that, it's all dependent upon funding, which we'll get to soon. And that really means what we really have to do there is we have to go beyond the startup phase and then go into that secondary phase of funding. And that will determine, we hope to get the 2 sessions done by the end of this calendar year, 2017, because we want to aggressively go into pairing dogs and veterans in 2018.
You mentioned funding. How will the program be funded?
Well, first and foremost, it will not be funded by the veterans. They will be free for everything that they encounter through our program, including the sanctuary on Infinita.
That's great.
Good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important to us because we don't want it to be a needs-based operation. So with that in mind, that leaves the rest of we citizens, whether we are veterans or citizens that have never been serving in the military, it's really up to us. I was reading a book just recently, and it was written by Edward Tick, and it's called The Warrior's Return. Fascinating book. It talks about restoring the soul after war, and I think that's actually part of the actual title. In that book, he was citing President Kennedy, and President Kennedy was talking about a reciprocal social contract between warrior, citizen, and the nation at large. That goes back into ancient times, and that I think is our returning warriors today tend to feel, those who are suffering, especially with the PTS and PTSD, et cetera, are feeling separated from that process. And what we hope to do is to gather the willing that feel the same way that we do. That it is our time and our turn to gather together in strength and to be here in a welcoming way and in an organized way and help them come home and begin the process of restoring their soul.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's close to home.
We have a big vision, and the vision extends to the sanctuary. And just picture a large sanctuary where it's acres and acres of wooded trails where they can sit on a rock or by a bubbling brook and on a park bench with like-minded souls, their dogs, their support people, all of those who have gone through the program. This is very important for them to have that time to restore their soul at their own pace. And so it's from program to forever.
We thank you so much for coming in and talking to us about this amazing organization, and we really
Thank
hope
you
that this
so
interview really helps push it and gets it to where you need to be and where you see the vision going. So
Well, thank you very much.
and we're here to
so
support
much.
you in
Thank
any
you.
way that we can.
Thank you for
Thank
Franklin
you.
TV.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for what you're doing for our veterans.
Thank you,
Thank
dear.
you. Thank you.
This program was made possible by your Franklin friends and neighbors, good folks just like you. Thanks for supporting Franklin TV. And thanks for watching.